All right, here's your bell ringer for today. Not psych. Okay, here he goes. So, explain where people would meet in Europe to discuss the newest enlightened ideas. Describe the Enlightened philosophers that was discussed yesterday in class. So, we're going to run through these guys really quick, and we're going to move on today to talk about a few more. And then we're going to mention about some enlightened absolute monarchs. What? Enlightened absolutism? You guys know what an oxymoron is? What does that mean? Jason?
So two different things that go together but are complete opposites.
Yeah, what's an example?
Uh, Enlightened absolute monarch.
That's a good one. Yeah, what about another one? Big baby? Never heard that before. Jumbo shrimp? Yeah, okay, all right. Anyway, so we're gonna talk about that today. Sounds weird, sounds strange, but some of these monarchs have to change with the times. If not, rebellions, revolts, revolutions. All right, so there you go. I'll give you guys some time here to work on this, and we're gonna move on. Again, I know I'm rushing here. I know I'm going through some of these guys here pretty quick. Today we're gonna talk about a woman actually. And just trying to set the stage here before break. So we get back, we go through the scientific revolution, and then we can finish up for Christmas break with the French Revolution and fully application. That's the goal. So, and then over break, you don't have anything to work on. Will that be nice? Right, Brody? Yeah. Bless you. All right, okay, so where would people go to meet to talk about the newest enlightened ideas? Where'd they go to meet? Blake? Yes, the hair salon, is that what we're talking about? No, all right, so salons here are like these hidden areas. So you guys ever hear of speakeasy before? Maybe, maybe not. Anybody? Jason, what's a speakeasy?
Where you go during,
Prohibition.
yeah.
Yep.
They would go there to get like alcohol mixed together. Because alcohol was outlawed.
Yeah, right. So a lot of times they'd be these hidden rooms. So you go into this little area and then all of a sudden, let's say the bookshelf moves and it's like this hidden room. And back in the day, the 1920s, especially 1930s, right, more in the 1930s, but people will go to these speakeasies, get a little bit of a drink because it was prohibited. You couldn't do it. You couldn't have a drink. But back in, even before this, we have the salons here, right? So again, these are ideas that challenge monarchs, right? We talked about absolute monarchs here. This last topic, these divine right rulers. They had all power, they had all control. And now all of a sudden, these new ideas start popping up and people start to question these divine right rulers, right? So what allowed for this information to travel place to place to place to place? What allowed this to happen? We talked about it, I think, in chapter one, into chapter one, maybe even chapter two. All right, but this is something good here. Elena. Yeah, the printing press. Good job. So with words, are they stronger than the strongest of armies? Well, maybe, right? So it's one of those things here with words, with different types of ideas here, ideologies. They're starting to challenge even the strongest of monarchs of the time, and that's something important to note as we're moving forward here through this enlightened, age. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about some of these enlightened philosophers. Real quick, who did we talk about yesterday? Well, who did the video talk about yesterday? Who did we start off with? Calvin? Adam Smith. Okay, what do we know about Adam Smith? All right, real quick, everybody should be filling this out as we're going through, right? So you got the country, major work, summary of philosophy, beliefs. You want to put a quote in, that'd be awesome. So I did put some quotes in on the presentation that you guys can just, if you wanted to, I guess you could copy it over or type it out, whatever you want to do. All right, also, I'm hoping that you guys put some sort of symbol by the person's name. That will help out when it comes to understanding these people. Okay, but anyway, Adam Smith, what do we know about Adam Smith? Calvin, go ahead. Yeah, good job, right? So capitalism, this is taking the newest trends here when it comes to expansion, right? That age of exploration that we talked about. Now joint stock companies are taking control, right? Now all of a sudden the private sector, when it comes to businesses, they're leading the way. Right now, that frees up capital for, let's say, the government, the crown. So England especially, that's how they became so powerful, so dominant during this age of exploration. Remember Elizabeth the First? Yeah, remember her? All right. So with that, she was, again, very pro-capitalist. She allowed the joint stock companies to take control, and that's why we see a lot of these new settlements here in the New World, like Roanoke, Jamestown, right? And they're bringing back that cash crop. What was that cash crop? What was it? Kate. Tobacco, yes, you shouldn't say it in school, but yeah, it's good. Tobacco. All right, anyway, so with Adam Smith, he coins the term capitalism. Has this kind of idea been around for a bit? Yeah, remember talking about the commercial revolution during the medieval times? Yeah, it's kind of been around. It allows these guilds and a lot of these different artisans to allow to unleash their potential when it comes to their artwork to make money off of it, right? And with capitalism through this time, he actually puts things in writing and talks about through the wealth of nations, the idea of how capitalism can really enhance society, right? It'll bring out the greatest of innovation, meaning inventions, right? How to do things better, to get a better product, a better good. And that's going to overall benefit times, that's going to overall benefit different areas throughout the world. All right, anyway, so one of the biggest things here I want to mention is that we have the invisible hand, laissez-faire economics. So laissez-faire means that the government needs to stay out of the workings of the economy, right? If the government gets involved, then, well, that's only going to slow down production. That's only going to slow down when it comes to innovation, right? Are there some negatives to capitalism? Of course, right? You get some greed. You get these wealthy business owners that want to try to control everything and bring in all the profits and not pay anybody. But we'll talk about some of these changes through the Industrial Revolution. Real quick, the biggest thing here for Adam Smith, a good symbol, if you guys want to put it down, take the S out of Smith and put a money sign. There you go, money sign. Capitalism. Okay, so that's important to know. So obviously with the United States, our foundation, our economic system is capitalism, but we have more of a mixed market economy now. You guys know what I mean by that? What do I mean by a mixed market economy? So our driving force is capitalism, but we also do have some social programs interwoven. So we do have some government funded services that are, interwoven within our economy. So we're not solely capitalism anymore, right? But one thing to note is that, again, our driving force is capitalism. That allows for the United States here to be at the cutting edge when it comes to new inventions, new innovations. So like I mentioned, Smith, yes, and Smith, put a dollar sign, that'd be great. All right, we good here. We good here. So again, this was in a video lesson yesterday. All right, who else we got? Thomas Hobbes, what's he famed for? What did he talk about? This guy's a little bit older. I should have talked about him first, because everybody else kind of looks at his ideas and saying, maybe not. Calvin. And what? Yes, good job. He talked about how man is evil and that, well, you need an authoritarian government to keep him in place. You need a monarchy to control his ideas, his viewpoints, his perspectives, because man is evil, right? The only way to try to keep this evil inside and bottled up is if you have an authoritarian government. Oh my gosh. So yeah, you can see how he's kind of a little outdated here when it comes to his ideology. Was he a loyalist in England? Probably, right? Let's face it. So it's one of those things here. He backed the crown. He backed absolutism. Oh boy. So I know this is a little bit of a different idea here, especially when we talk about these enlightened philosophers, because they're looking at his idea and saying, no, this isn't right. But anyway, biggest thing here for Thomas Hobbes, early on, he backed absolutism. He thought man was born evil. And the only way to make sure that you can keep that evil bottled in is if you have an absolute monarchy. You give up all your rights, all your privileges, all your opportunities to the government, right? To the king, to the monarch. All right, he did talk about a social contract. What's a social contract? What does that mean? What does that mean? So a contract means an agreement, right? So this is an agreement between you and the government. In this case, for Thomas Hobbes, you give up everything, all of it for the government. Is that the way to go about things? No, it's not. But early on, this was one of the viewpoints, so the ideas. So again, you can see how he's kind of backing the monarchy here. All right, real quick for Thomas Hobbes, a good symbol I would put in is like a crown. Put a crown there, right? Put a crown. So it just shows that he's the monarch, right? That he is the almighty. He believes that the almighty leader should hold all power. Again, people were born evil. Oh, no. Look at this. It is not wisdom, but authority that makes a law. What? Come on, man. Come on. All right, we good here? Again, we talked about this yesterday. All right, John Locke. All right, what do we got here for John Locke? Anyway, he talks. Oh, go ahead, Austin. Thank you. We'll go back a little bit. So
Created the two treaties of government.
yeah, good.
Declaration of Rights of Man.
Yeah, good job, right? So that's two of his famous works. Did he believe that people were born evil? Like Thomas Hobbes believed? Is that what he believed? No. Right? He believed that everybody was born with a blank slate. Right? So with that, he said that people actually have rights that are given by God that the government can't take away. Right? Those rights are life, liberty, and land. Nope. We kind of tweak it. With our government, we tweak it a bit. We make pursuit of happiness. But what is it? Balance. Yeah, it's property. Good job. Life, liberty, and property. All right. So he's saying that these rights are given to you by God. And that God, right, controls that obviously with you. That's your social contract. Okay. And government, well, they can't infringe on that. They can't take away your life. They can't take away your liberty. They can't take away your property. These are things here that are promised to you by God. The government can't take that away. All right. So in other words, he has a little bit of a different insight, a different viewpoint that challenges Thomas Hobbes. Right? John Locke says, no. Right? We have these human rights. That'd be a good one to put down for his name. Human rights that are given to us, granted to us by God. Government, the monarchy can't take that away. Good way to remember his name, John Locke. He's locking in your liberties. He's locking in your freedoms. Does that make sense? He's making sure that no one can take that away, even the monarchy, even the government. All right. So in other words, John Locke, right? He is kind of stepping out here at the time. And let's face it, right? Is this something that people typically did back in the day? No, you find your head on a pike if you challenge the divine right monarch, right, Brody? Yeah, so these guys are really scandalous for the time. right? That's why in these salons here, when they talk about these new ideas, they had to stay hidden. They had to stay kind of away from people, especially the monarchy, that they didn't know where they're meeting, because this could be some risky stuff. All right, so again, good way to remember it, John Locke, he's locking in their human rights, right? He's making sure that government can't take it away, that the monarchy can't take it away. Again, life, liberty, and Madeline, property. Yeah, good job. Elena, good job. Eventually, the founding fathers will twist it a bit, and we'll be like, oh, pursuit of happiness, nuts, good stuff. All right, moving on here. Rousseau. What do we know about Rousseau? What do we know about Rousseau? Jason.
Contract. Direct time on this.
Yeah, good job, right? So as you can see, he has an idea of a social contract, just like Thomas Hobbes. I won't say just like, but totally different than Thomas Hobbes, right? He says he has an idea of a social contract that should be a little bit more lenient to the people, that combines the ideas of John Locke within his social contract. He says this agreement through government should promise your rights, promise your opportunities, your liberties. Right? It's not like Thomas Hobbes here, where you're giving everything here to the monarchy. Now, Rousseau is saying, nope, nope, right? This social contract, actually, the government should work for you. You got that? The government should work for you, right? These monarchies here should be looking in the best interest of you, right? You shouldn't be looking in the best interest of the monarchy. That doesn't make any sense. So you can see how his social contract is a lot different than Thomas Hobbes, right? Same term, I get it, but right, his contract is a little bit obviously more lenient to the people. Right? Hobbes is more for the government, for the monarchy. Rousseau is like, no, no. Anyway, here's a good quote by him. Man is born free. Oh, okay. But everywhere he's in chains. Ooh, what does that mean? What does that mean? So you're born with your human rights, right? But as you look out through all Europe, at the time here especially, right, these absolute monarchies chain you down. They had all control. They had all power. Right, you could embrace your liberties, your freedoms, your opportunities, your pursuit of happiness, right? Your property, nothing, because, well, governments all across Europe, all across the world, even at that point, right, had full control, had full power. So you didn't have freedom of speech, you didn't have the right to bear arms, nothing, nothing. All right, so his social contract again is saying that the government should actually work for the people, right? So I think that's a great quote, a really good quote by Rousseau. I guess easy way to remember it, social contract. Oh, look at that. Just rolls off the tongue, right, Brody? Voltaire. All right, so this is someone new, right? We didn't talk about Voltaire yesterday, did we? All right, so Voltaire, right, he is the figure here when it comes to freedom of speech. All right, so make sure you guys write that down. Voltaire, freedom of speech. There he is. All right, so what did he write? He wrote the Candide 1759. He actually had to go by a pen name. Oh no, he actually served some time in jail for his enlightened viewpoints, his crazy ideas that challenged the monarchies of the time. So in other words, yeah, you had to go by a different name because they're going to hunt you down. They're going to, if they didn't throw you in jail, they're going to exile you, they're going to kill you. So for Voltaire, he actually stepped out of the box here and said that people are granted this freedom of speech by God. And when it comes to the state, when it comes to the government, they can't take that away from you. Actually, not too long ago, when Elon Musk bought Twitter, when he made X, he actually quoted Voltaire. He says, listen, freedom of speech is your First Amendment right. This is God given, right? This is where the country, the government, the state, in this case here, the monarch, right? They can't take that away from you. So in other words, Voltaire, he's still getting quoted today because of his freedom of speech. All right, here's a good one too. I do not agree with what you have to say, but will defend to the death your right to say it. Ooh, that's a good one. What does that mean? How can we break this down? Jason, go ahead.
You might not necessarily agree with what you're saying. You're gonna make sure that you can still say it.
Yeah, good job, right? So he's like, yeah, you know what? We might not see eye to eye politically, right? We might not see eye to eye when it comes to our interests, entertainment, whatever it might be. I might say something that might make you ooh. And well, he says it doesn't matter. He doesn't care. Right? He believes that people should have the right to say whatever they want, freely whatever they want. So it's one of those things here. Freedom of speech is a very high priority of his. So that's again one of the biggest things here you could mention about Voltaire. Right? You can say he helps inspire the First Amendment of the United States. Okay, you can say whatever you want. You can challenge whoever, right? Especially when it comes to these authoritarian leaders, these governments, these states. So in other words, Voltaire, freedom of speech, right? This is a good one. I think that quote's really hits the nail on the head, right? Even though I might not agree with what you have to say, I respect it, right? We live in a country here where you can say what you want, right? Obviously, if you say some damaging things, if you say some false things, you might get beat up, right? And especially depending on the matter where you're at, you could see some repercussions for sure. But anyway, Voltaire believes that First Amendment right, our First Amendment, freedom of speech should be protected. And he agrees, even if he doesn't obviously agree with your opinion, he believes that that should be stated here. What's up?
Where's he from?
He's from France. Yeah. So yeah, I might not have a location. You guys might have to look into this a little bit. Anyway, he does see some time in jail. He does actually kind of get exiled from places because, oh man, these are scandalous things. Also, one thing he does say is separation of church and state. All right, so separation of church and state. I'd write that one down too. So with Voltaire, separation of church and state, I think that's a good one to remember him by too. All right, and obviously that's one of the biggest foundations here for our government in the United States. We don't have religion dictating what we do here when it comes to our government, right? Some theocracies out there are not the greatest, right? But still, we respect that religion as a foundation of our government. And when we think about the Pilgrims, the Puritans, who we talked about, right? A lot of our settlements here early on were based off of religion, right? But at the same time, we should have a clear separation when it comes to policy making, when it comes to decisions being made, right? Religion is a high priority, but sometimes we got to separate the two. All right, so Voltaire, separation of church and state, freedom of speech, those are the two biggest ones. Also, he talked a lot about slavery. He needed to end slavery, right? Everybody across the world, right? England, especially at this time, we get to France. A lot of these countries were still holding on to it, but eventually that will change, right? The United States holding on to it in mid-1800s, okay? And eventually that will obviously come to an end after the Civil War. But in any case, you can see how Voltaire spoke a lot about the ending of slavery, which you got to imagine a lot of countries around the world, especially in Europe, really embraced it. So it was one of those things that this was scandalous to talk about. This was something that would cause your death because you're speaking out against some of these practices. All right, we go with Voltaire. All right, good stuff. Montesquieu. All right, Montesquieu here, he is talking about the separation of powers, right? Checks and balances. These are important here. We can't give all power. We can't give all authority to one person or one branch of government. No. We have to have multiple branches of government where the power is balanced equally. All right, so he wrote the Spirit of Laws. Ooh, all right, good. He talked about the separation of powers and that there needs to be checks and balances that keep these powers in balance with one another. Right, so let's say the executive branch here, there's some checks and balances here to make sure that it doesn't become too powerful. That the president of the United States doesn't hold all power, especially over the legislative branch or the judicial branch. Right, you have these three branches here that balance things out to make sure that the country's operating and making sure it doesn't turn into an authoritarian government, an authoritarian state. All right, so in other words here, right, he comes up with the idea that we need to have some sort of balance of power when it comes to a three-branch system, an executive power, which obviously in England's case, you have the king, the monarchy, right? You have, in this case, let's say the prime minister, right? He would kind of be focused there, along with the legislative branch, I get that. But when it comes to this figurehead, that's who you think of. This is a person that's making decisions for the country, right? When it comes to certain policies. Parliament, right? In this case for England, is like our Congress, our legislative branch. These are elected officials by the people, right? That make decisions when it comes to creating laws, when it comes to coming up with policy, when it comes to even waging war. Oh boy. Anyway, the legislative branch helps balance things out. And when it comes to our government, in Article 1 of the Constitution, well, Congress and the legislative branch, that one was deemed to be the most powerful. I get it, right? Because these are elected officials. Right? We have a Senate and a House of Representatives, but in all reality, they all balance each other out. Right? Judicial power, you got judges, right? Obviously, we have Supreme Court. So up here by the clock, that's a good way to remember it, the three-branch system. You got the executive branch, you got the legislative branch, you got the judicial branch. Anyway, how do they keep each other in check? Well, a good example here is, let's say, for a law, right? A law. So let's say when it comes to legislative branch, they want to come up with a law, whatever it might be. So they determine through the House and the Senate, right, what this law will look like, right? What it will be applied to, right? As that law gets pushed up to the president here to get signed, the president decides whether he's going to sign off on it or veto it. Ooh, veto means reject it. So as this gets passed up to the president, let's say he passes it on, right? He signs it into law. So as that law becomes official, well, down the line, the judicial branch, the Supreme Court can look at it and say, that's unconstitutional, goes against the Constitution of the United States. So we're going to take that away. So in other words, that's how the branches balance each other out. Anyway, Montesquieu had a very good idea here when it comes to separation of powers. He's making sure that one branch, one person doesn't become too powerful, doesn't hold all power. And that's a good thing, right? So, and anyways, he says down here, to become truly great, one has to stand with people, not above them. So that's a good quote, especially for the time when it comes to these absolute monarchs. It's like, hey, you can try to boss people around all you want, but a true leader actually leads by example. A true leader joins the masses, joins the people. Remember Peter the Great? He joined in the shipyards, right? Yes. So that's something to think about. Anyway, Montesquieu, how do you remember him? So you can break it down into syllables, right? So Montesquieu, right? So Montesquieu, 3 syllables here, 3-branch system. That's an easy way to remember it. Good? Montesquieu. So if you want to just break that down, I don't know, put slash marks in between his name to help you remember what he's all about, the separation of powers, his 3-branch systems. I think that's a good way to do it. Or if you just want to put 3 branches right by his name, that's fine too. Good, Montesquieu? Okay, moving on. Beccaria. All right, so he's Italian. Ooh, nice. Beccaria. All right, what did he talk about? Well, he said about people that are on trial, right? People that commit crimes. It doesn't mean your rights just go away. It doesn't mean that they vanish, right? So in other words, Beccaria said, I'm going to try to help people, especially that are accused of a crime, that might be falsely accused, so that their rights aren't just thrown away, that they're not just tossed out, that they're still promised to them, that they're still given these rights, even if they commit a crime. All right, so a lot of his ideas, a lot of his viewpoints here, you can see in the 8th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, right? So when it comes to cruel and unusual punishments, oh, nope, that's not happening. Now, when it comes to the 14th Amendment here, when it comes to due process, right? Obviously, that's important. So Beccaria is one of these here Enlightened philosophers that back people, even if they committed a crime. Their rights just don't disappear. All right, so he wrote On Crimes and Punishments in 1764. And as you can see, a lot of these ideas come out right around the French Revolution, right around the American Revolution. Inspiration? I think so. Right, anyway, so when he talks about it, he says, speak out in favor of fair and just punishments, no brutality. So you can see how, all the time, a lot of these kings, a lot of these monarchs would just falsely accuse someone of being, let's say, a heretic. Yeah, that happened quite a bit up to this point since we've been talking since chapter 1. So what will they do? They just put them to death, kill them, right? There's no questions asked. There's no judicial processing. There's no, let's say, civil cases or criminal cases here put in play, where they can hear the person that committed the crime, his viewpoint, right? There's none of that, right, up until this point. Now, Beccaria, he steps out and says this judicial processing should happen, right? So when it comes down to it, these people here should have a say in the matter, right? Their rights should not just be, they shouldn't just disappear, even if they are charged for a crime. All right, so he also says fair and speedy trial, right? Obviously not to be tortured, no capital punishment, meaning, well, the bail shouldn't be set at a ridiculous amount of money here where they can't obviously see, let's say, the light of day here, where they can actually come up with some sort of way to pay out and then get out of bail. Obviously, depending on the crime, you might not see that, right? Depending on the crime, it might be a really high number, right? Obviously, you just can't go around murdering people. But in any case, he believes that when it comes to criminals, their rights should just disappear. Their rights should be granted to them, even if, right, they committed a crime. They should be able to speak out and express their viewpoint, their mentality here before, right? They're just put to death, let's say, by a monarchy. All right, is there any questions here on Beccaria? All right, so do you want to put, I don't know, like a jail cell for Beccaria? That'd be good. Or, I don't know, something, I don't know, you guys come up with a good symbol, I've been giving you a lot of them here. But Beccaria, anyway, when it comes to rights of the accused, good one. All right, Wollstonecraft, here we go. All right, so Mary Wollstonecraft, obviously, right? She's a woman here, so she's fighting for women's rights, women's opportunity, women having the opportunity for an education. This is very important, right? So you can see here, she wrote the Vindication of Rights of Women in the late 1700s. So as you all know, women didn't have the same rights as men for a long time, right? We don't see in the United States until what amendment? Right to vote, women's suffrage. Who's that amendment? Oh, come on, don't you know this? Jason? Yes, the 19th Amendment, good job. Anyway, when you think about it, maybe that's something here that Wollstonecraft helped inspire. I think so, right? Women's suffrage, women right to vote. So you want to put that down here for what she helped inspire. That'd be great. Anyway, Mary Wollstonecraft in the late 1700s was talking about how women should have the same opportunities as men when it comes to the workplace, right? When it comes to education, when it comes to a voice in government, right? Just because they're a woman doesn't mean that their rights, their opportunities just disappear. So that's important to know. But she spoke heavily about, especially education. So when it comes to college, when it comes to university, when it comes to just gaining the same education as a man, right? Wollstonecraft spoke heavily about this. Anyway, obviously here from England, and we'll talk about it more. Well, we won't focus too much on the United States as much, but when we get to the 19th Amendment, I'll definitely talk about it. All right, obviously I take some time, 1920 in the United States, holy cow. So 1920 in the United States, 1790 is when she's bringing this up. So you can see that takes some time here, especially the US for women's suffrage. All right, also, here's an interesting fact about Mary Wollstonecraft. Her daughter, Mary Shelley, wrote Frankenstein. Look at that. You don't know Frankenstein, right? Yeah, okay. So you can kind of see the symbolism behind that, right? You can kind of see how, right, especially during this age of absolutism, the Industrial Revolution, right, there's so many things going on that kind of changes the appearance of man, changes the appearance of people, right? To be viewed as a monster, oh my God. So there's a lot of hidden symbolism behind it, which again, kind of goes for the time. Anyway, Mary Wollstonecraft, that'd be a good one. If you want to put the female symbol by it, that'd be great, whatever. That'd be something obviously to remember by. All right, here's a quote. Men and women must be educated in a great degree by the opinions and manners of society they live in. All right. So not just men, but women should be given the same opportunity to education. All right, here's Wollstonecraft. Last thing here I wanted to mention. So I know I'm talking about oxymorons here to start a class. You're probably like, where's he going with this? But during the time here, as these new ideas were stemming out, as these salons were popping up, not hair salons, right? These salons popping up all throughout Europe. People were talking about the newest trends, the newest ideas of what government should be, what rights are given to the people that can't be taken away. And all of a sudden, these monarchies are realizing, well, the people are going against us. We're not going to have an army. We're not going to have a military. We're not going to have this great luxury life that we've been living for so long. Right? They're going to overthrow us. There's going to be a revolution. So we got to change. Right? We got to change. Anyway, here's a list of monarchs. Right? Frederick the Great of Prussia. Okay, Maria Theresa of Austria. Joseph II of Austria, which is the son of Maria Theresa. Catherine the Great of Russia. Right? So you can see Catherine the Great kind of follows suit of Peter the Great. But anyway, the basic things here to remember by these guys, they're going to allow religious freedom, right? To an extent, right? So we're finally getting to some religious freedom. Awesome. Education, all right? Public education starts to stem here in parts of Europe, right? It's important that people are educated, right? For society, for manners of military, more in general. But in any case, people are educated. That's going to help advance these countries, right? Education is a key aspect here. That's going to help. Right. Also, when it comes to adopting these ideas of allowing people to express themselves freely, I'm not saying freedom of speech. Geez, even some countries still today in Europe, most of Europe today, still don't have freedom of speech. That is crazy. That's wild. I can't believe it. In any case, that's something to think about. Also, opportunities for women. You got Maria Theresa, Catherine the Great. They're going to push that a lot in our said countries. Last thing I want to mention, interesting fact about Catherine the Great. Came up with the first roller coaster. What? Roller coaster. Yeah, so in Russia, it gets really cold. We all know that. It was more like kind of a play in a way. But she comes up with this first amusement ride, so to speak, on the icy landscape of Russia. So she get in a sled, go down, I thought it was really fun, thought it was cool, so maybe the first roller coaster, neat. All right, is there any questions, guys? So again, enlightened absolutism, I know it sounds crazy, there's oxymoron here, but these absolute monarchs are starting to bend a little bit. Like, we gotta do something here to give these people rights, give these people opportunities. If we don't, we're gonna see revolutions, right? We're gonna see bloodshed. So, there you go. Oh, perfect timing. Sal Luna, current events for tomorrow. See you.